I'll explain that. That's coming. I am. So, just to give you guys actually, as I try to find where we are, and we've come from a break. Remember, we've talked about how a bill becomes a law, and we're trying to do it in its simple and complex form. So, in a simple sense, you have to format it, but there's all these different ways to format it, and that may increase or decrease chances of passage depending on how you format it, right? And then you've got to introduce it. So, again, introduction is something formal, and the chambers differ based on numbers. And again, introduction may have some ways to steer it, just based on the idea of who signed on to it and did more than one person sign on to it. You then get assigned to a committee. And again, here's where the fate of a bill really can be swayed because different committees, operate differently. Some might, have a membership on that committee that would look at a bill more favorably, or, it might have a more conservative or liberal leaning that might change the fate of the bill, right? And then again, underneath all of this is our looking at, the different types of committees, ones that you kind of need to know independently. We're doing both the kind of the simple and the complex version. So to pick up roughly where we left off, I had mentioned, again, committee assignments are obviously very important. And so how committees get made become important. If it can make or break political careers, if they do important work like appropriations, like the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. If they're doing important work, it matters who is on the committee and how they get on. So committees have set numbers. They have a similar kind of pattern that you would see on the House floor. So there's a ranking member, and they'll be in charge of the committee. But can they stack the committee with all like-minded people? Well, no, there's going to be a balance of Democrats and Republicans, and that balance is going to be reflective of the overall balance on the floor. The ratio of Democrats to Republicans should be the same ratio, roughly, of what you see in the larger chamber. That having been said, the majority gets to kind of set the ratio. The majority gets to kind of do a 2 for me, 1 for you if they so choose. More so you might see it in terms of rounding in their favor. What keeps them from going completely sideways? I suppose the fact that one day's majority could be next day's minority group, and it sets a bad precedent. If you use a power abusively, you set the stage for the other side doing the same. Okay? So ratio is again set by the majority party. But they do try to follow the overall ratio. Committees on committees then use that kind of working number to appoint members. And again, picture an AP question that says, why would someone be appointed to be an ambassador, a chief justice, a leadership position in the House or Senate, a person that serves on a committee? Go with the obvious, right? Expertise ought to be the number one thing. You would expect, in order for someone to get a job, that they have the qualifications for that job. Some of what they consider too is constituency. Just like I said, members want to serve on certain committees because it's a way to serve their constituents. The committees want them because they have a familiarity with that issue. They're dialed in. So constituency matters kind of in both directions. So does seniority and party loyalty. So you could, use this, maybe not the Supreme Court in terms of talking about constituency, but what plugs in for considering a person qualified for one job probably fits in for others as well. This is fairly universal what we're looking at. Just as I mentioned, the speaker and the presiding officer, roughly in the Senate, has some powerful powers because they preside. Same thing goes with committee chairs. You saw what the committees look like. There was that opening statement on the Benghazi one. Is that coming back to you guys? And he got to set the tone. He got to talk about the committee, why they're there, what they're looking at. The ranking minority leader also, that serves on the committee, also got to talk and set his tone. But it's the chair that's going to determine the agenda. It's the chair that's going to preside. And that's a powerful tool to kind of control debate and considerations. They'll make subcommittee assignments. They have a budget, so they can decide, how do I want to say this? The budget allows them working capital to hold hearings, to bring people in, to do studies, and how you spend that, is important. It can spotlight an issue, maybe more so than you might normally, or you can not put a spotlight on things. And they served for a long time. In the Republican sweep of '94, one of the things they talked about is term limits. They eventually did away with that idea. They routinely waive the idea of limits, including that for leadership positions. So chairs become more powerful as the years go on. Okay, so this is where, again, we want to remember the whole thread of things, because I've done a lot of micro look at committees. And we may have, in that process of understanding there's different types of committees, and here are some specific examples of committees, and here's the considerations in putting people on committee positions, we may have kind of forgotten the big picture, which is what is it they're there to do? What they're there to do. Again, why don't I just go right to the floor to talk about bills? Why don't I go right to the floor to talk about bills, Nate?
There's a lot of bills and a lot of information, so they might not know all about it.
Good. There's a lot of bills and a lot of information, and it's not efficient to kind of have them discuss things that they don't know about. So committees represent what? Why are they effective? I've taken all that work, and I've done what? I've divided it up. So it represents a division of labor, and when you divide up labor and you have people concentrate on one thing, what do they get? They specialize, and they get what? If you concentrate on one thing, you get better, right? You get expertise. So what the whole job of the committee is to use their expertise and make a recommendation. Here's where we stand, okay? And people on the floor, senators and representatives, that's a powerful cue to them. Where does this particular committee stand on it? So they're going to use it as a shorthand. And that helps you understand what we're looking at here. The committee has a number of options once they're done with all their hearings, with all their investigations, with all their studies. They're going to come back and they're going to typically do one of two things. They're either going to report favorably. That language is kind of important because that's committee language. That's different than what we do on the floor. So they'll report favorably, which means thumbs up. We recommend passage. They can report unfavorably. We're returning it to the floor. You are, welcome to vote on it at this point, but we don't recommend passage. Okay? They can take the bill as they study it and decide, I like a lot of it, but there's parts I don't like. I'm going to mark up. They literally take a pen to it, and they'll alter it. So it's, again, committee speak for amending. Not attaching amendments, but amending. So, doing kind of their changes. They can decide, you know what, the only thing I like about this really is the title and the underlying kind of idea. We're going to rework it from scratch. That's called a clean bill. So they basically, use the original bill as some sort of genesis for their own ideas on the topic and draft their own. Pigeonholing is something unique to the committee system, but you're going to see a similar version of it on the floor. It's called tabling. What both of them are is a stalling tactic. It's a way of essentially saying, we're basically going to hold the bill hostage, and there's some logic to this. See if you can kind of guess it. So I'm going to hold on to it indefinitely within committee, and I'm going to use it as a way to kill this bill. Why do you think they would use this as opposed to simply reporting unfavorably? Why not just return it to the floor? I don't like it, so let's kill it that way. I'm going to return it to the floor. Jack, what can happen?
Because if you return it to the floor, people might get mad at you for killing the bill.
So, one, I have taken a public statement or made a public stand against the bill. And maybe there's something in the bill about, let's say it's more, benefits for veterans. and I don't think it's fiscally sound, but geez, I don't want to take who's against, benefits for veterans? And, hooray for Kids Day. It's going to be a more benefits for veterans and hooray for kids. And the elderly are nice. That's also in the bill. So you're going to take a public stand against that? You don't like the elderly? What's wrong with you people? I'm disappointed, right? So one, it might be a way to kind of kill something without doing it as publicly. If you follow Congress, you can understand that they pigeonhole things, but that's a fraction of people out there. What else can happen, though, if I return it unfavorably? What can happen? Still can get passed. So this may be a more effective way to kill it because I hold on to it indefinitely. It's a way to avoid the public damage, and it's a way to potentially kill it. The name, by the way, comes from essentially an old-fashioned desk. I don't know if you've ever seen these, but this is, got enough compartments and cubby holes that people would routinely lose valuable things within this desk. This thing that's supposed to help you organize would often kind of be a place that you'd lose things. And also resembled a pigeon coop where, pigeons could nest. So it's called pigeonholing. This is kind of called a pigeonhole desk. And from the desk, we get the tactic. Now, for every tactic, there's always kind of a countermeasure. So pigeonholing is that parliamentary way in which we can kind of kill a bill and avoid a lot of public damage. We have a counter tactic called a discharge petition. And what it is it's a request by a majority of the members on the floor for the committee to release the bill. So every measure typically has a countermeasure. Okay? So there's committee consideration. And again, what we're trying to understand from this is the committees are a source of expertise. There's thousands of bills. They're incredibly complex. Members often have a legal background, have great education, but they don't necessarily have the expertise to understand everything. So committees are just one source that they might lean on. Another source is the Library of Congress, which, you want to think about both as a cultural institution. It is the largest library in the world with hundreds of miles worth of bookshelves. And not only are there books there, there's, electronic, digital kind of things that are archived. There's photographs, there's maps, there's manuscripts. But not only is there cultural preservation, what a lot of people don't know about is there's a research arm in the Library of Congress. The largest library in the world hires some of the best researchers, academics, scholars you can imagine. And then they write the world's best term papers, the world's best research papers. You give them any topic, and a member can essentially call up and say, hey, I'm trying to figure out about what to do about Syria here. Can you, give me all the information you have on the Syrian refugees and how successful our refugee program is being? Are people finding jobs? Are people integrating? Or are they becoming radicalized when they get here? What do you think, right? And then you've got the best researchers in the world using the best material in the world, giving you the best reports in the world. So they will analyze and go over a legislative proposal, or they will look at a legal issue. They will look at particular topics and give you, a report. I'm going to show you some evidence of that here in a second. Or they may even come to Congress, sit in a committee, and testify. So really a valuable thing. How many, you guys all, a lot of you indicated you went to Washington, D.C. Did you visit? I mean, it's stunning inside, the architecture. But you may have gotten to where one of the reading rooms is. There's a way to view down on it. And, there's got to be some good reports that come out of a place that look like that, right? So if you were, again, to just focus on the cultural side, they do a lot of great work. They do a lot of exhibitions. They make kind of public all kinds of artifacts and things that we ought to be looking at. But I wanted to give you just a sampling of some of the titles of these research reports that they churn out, whether it's on natural gas and environmental impact. This is on a particular spending proposal on naval expenditures on a particular ship. And I would hope that ships are amphibious. I hope that that's not what we're studying. Does the ship actually float here? That seems like an oxymoron, or a little repetitive to me. Trade-based money laundering. Here is, if you were to open one up, the start of an analysis on Zika. If ever you're doing like a research paper, whether it's in college or here, and you're looking for a great source to kind of cite, you can call and get these. You might have to go through your representative, and you can research it and find out it's there. A lot of them are available online, but if you want like a physical copy or you're having trouble getting it, you can call and get one of these. You have to cite it, by the way. You can't turn in the Congressional Research Service's report as your own. But that is another source of expertise. Here's another one, the General Accounting Office. What they are considered is the eyes and ears of Congress. So when you're accounting, if I take account of something, I want to make sure that everything's in its place and everything was done according to law. So they'll look at how we're actually spending money and to make sure that the money was spent as it was agreed to, right? They will take an accounting of things to make sure the books are correct. And they'll also make recommendations on policy. So the quality isn't great here, but they will issue all of these kinds of reports on air traffic control, on the Federal Reserve, on hazardous materials and shipment by rail. And they'll look at it from a kind of a fiscal side. Okay, we had a law that regulated some of these things. How's the money being spent with regards to these issues? But they'll also make policy recommendations based on, hey, the money's being spent. What's the result? Now, more so to look at kind of results is the CBO, the Congressional Budget Office. The president has their own set of kind of financial experts, the General Accounting Office. So again, here's the pluralist theory. The president kind of has their number crunchers. We have our own as well. And, the idea is that both are supposed to be nonpartisan. Anybody know what that means? Nonpartisan. Yeah, so this is about numbers. This isn't about ideology. This isn't about leaning left or right. This is just what do the numbers tell you. So they're going to look at, when you are doing a budget, you are looking at how much money I have and how do I want to allocate it. So picture your family budget. That's essentially what they're doing. They're saying, okay, here's the federal budget, and here are our recommendations about how we allocate it. The General Accounting Office, or the eyes and ears that I mentioned of Congress, is looking at, was it then spent according to law? So they're going to give you recommendations on, again, how you get bang for your buck. Where is there going to be money that is spent effectively, right? Okay. Other resources that they have when they're considering legislation is staff. So when you guys visited, I don't know if you went to congressional offices. Anybody go? Good. So the offices, were they surprising to you at all? Did you picture luxurious and they looked, yeah. They look like cube farms. So if you've ever worked in an office, they often take a big space and they put all these partitions up, and it's called a cube farm, because what happens is workers pop their heads up like gophers occasionally to talk to each other over the partition, and it's kind of dehumanizing on some level. You're penned in like cattle. And so you picture, wow, representative, they're a powerful, prestigious person. And when you walk in, there's usually a receptionist that, initially you have the feelings of this is an impressive office with the, carpeting and pictures and things like that. But what it is they're kind of all in a pen together. And what you miss is there's interns mixed in here with LCs. LCs are legislative correspondents. Their job is to largely answer the mail and the phone calls that come in and keep constituents happy in terms of, you called in about an issue, here's our response. There's LAs, those are legislative assistants. Those are ones that form policy expertise on a particular topic and will give the member their expert advice. They're the ones that kind of track the bills within that area. There's AAs, administrative assistants, which sound secretarial, but their job is to basically run the whole show. There's press secretaries. They're obviously in charge of kind of communications with the public and the media. There may be speechwriters. There may be a whole host of individuals all in this pen. And then usually the member has not usually, they have their own kind of private office that does look a little more impressive. This is was Kennedy's, who had one of the more impressive offices. Okay? So you've got this pen full of individuals who are researching bills, who are going to the committee meetings, listening and coming up with summaries. Your LAs will be drafting legislation. Your press secretaries and communications directors will be writing speeches. The interns will be the ones, essentially, in the LCs will be doing some of the grunt work about someone comes in and wants a tour. Okay, I'm going to give you a tour. Someone comes in and has maybe not comes in, but writes about something or emails about something or makes a phone call about something. We'll get on that. Someone needs help with a particular issue. That's called casework. They're not getting a benefit. They're not. They've got an issue with their local government. I'm going to kind of help them with that. So there's a pretty decent staff. And again, it includes interns. So this poor guy had to work with this poor guy here, right? This was Congressman Mrazek. When I was in college. He was a representative from Long Island. So you don't necessarily have to work for someone within your own district, by the way. I put up an employment bulletin here to let you see that there's all kinds of different positions. I mentioned a lot of them. And, you can apply for an internship. They don't pay you, typically. What was interesting about my internship is I paid them. I got college credit. So if you think about it, I was paying for the college credit, which I got for working for free. And on my first day, I walked into his office, and he gave me his fish tank and a toilet bowl scrubber and sent me to go clean it. So I was college credit and college dollars for that kind of experience. Eventually, I did some more interesting things, but not at my first day. This was my last day, so got a photo with the congressman. And just to show you something simple, at any point, if he wants to take a photo with anybody on the Capitol steps, there's a photographer who will come take a great photo and send it to you electronically. We'll give you a print version. If you were a constituent and you were coming to visit and you got this photo, is that a lifetime vote? What a great guy. He took a photo with me. You put it up in your house like a shrine, right? So that's kind of important. Just to give you the layout of where they work. So, this is the Capitol, and this is what we often think about. But this is a complex. This is called Capitol Hill. And, for the political nerds and geeks, this is kind of their Xanadu. I live in Capitol Hill. Oh, you live in Capitol Hill. It's the place to live because there is residential areas around here and bars unique to Democrats and Republicans. And this is where you go to get your political nerd on. This is where you live. And it's a complex. It's this city where they live, eat, and breathe legislation. So these are the House office buildings. This is where representatives have their offices, and this is where I worked in the Cannon. There's the Cannon, the Longworth, and the Rayburn. So you've got these three buildings are the House side. This is one of the buildings for the Library of Congress. This is the more well-known part of the Library of Congress. Here's the Supreme Court. And on this side is the Senate. And the Senate has their own three office buildings each are named for very prestigious, famous Congress members. So you've got on this side the Russell, Dirksen, and Hart. And again, it's kind of like your college dorm room. Like, I'm in the Cannon. Oh, you're in the Rayburn? Oh, and again, they get their political geek on. But this is a whole city for them to, do their job. I call it a city. It's a, you can kind of see it's this complex. That's probably a better term for it. Okay? So, at any rate, we've got our expert advice. We are now ready to consider the bill. But we got to schedule it. There was thousands of bills coming in, right? And we gotta, we can't consider them all at once. We gotta come up with some sort of system for what we consider when. So what seems like a logical, kind of nonpartisan way to figure out what to consider when? How would you schedule it? How would you decide what to look at and when? What do you think, Kai? First come, first serve. That typically is a way that they will handle it. So the order that they come in is the order we consider them. Does anybody see a flaw with that? What would be a problem?
Well, if there's like a bill that needs immediate.
Yeah, there's like disaster relief, but we've got to name these post offices first. And it's really important we name these post offices first. Then we'll get to the disaster relief. So obviously there's going to be occasions where chronological consideration isn't practical, that we have to kind of jump out of order, but we want a procedure for that. That's the Rules Committee. Again, in the Senate, we are going to talk about that a little differently. They're a little more freewheeling, therefore they don't have as tight of kind of oversight. The Rules Committee is something unique to the House. So the House Rules Committee is also nicknamed the traffic cop. The one out there in the intersection kind of waving traffic, through and telling other streams of traffic they have to stop. So that analogy, if you're going to live on Capitol Hill and be accepted by those people, you need to know things like traffic cop and what tabling and pigeonholing is. And then you're in the clique. Then you know the secret handshake, right? What the traffic cop does is consider privileged bills. These can jump the queue. These are more important. These are about disaster relief, for example. They'll also set terms for debate and amendments. Like they can say, we're only going to have 40 minutes worth of debate. We're not going to allow amendments, and that might speed passage. Or we're going to make this more open, and that may slow passage. So again, this seems like a powerful way to put a stranglehold on something, to kick a bill way to the back and never really consider it. I've got pigeonholing, and I've got my countermeasure of getting it out, the discharge petition. The Rules Committee can similarly stall. So I've got my countermeasure. It's called Calendar Wednesdays. Why? It happens on Wednesdays. What does it do, or what's involved? Simply what can happen is the ranking member from the committee, or the committee through some sort of proxy, can simply say, hey, Mr. Speaker, we request that the bill that we have under consideration be called up for debate. So a request by the committee on the floor to consider the bill brings that bill to the floor, unless there's objection, and it has to be pretty strenuous objection. You need a two-thirds vote to cancel, and then your bill gets kicked way to the back again. All right? Just to kind of give you a quick visual, there's some bills, and they're stacked up. Again, what I'm really trying to show you is that they make themselves transparent. What they're considering, when they're considering, if I want the status, if I want the text, I can see it, right? But we never go there. So once I've got it scheduled, we're going to go to floor action. And floor action is really where you guys pictured most of the work, all right? I'm going to disillusion you really starting tomorrow, where you guys picture great democratic debate. You picture, did it work? Seems to be working. At any rate, he's going to be debating. We'll see if I can figure out why he isn't tomorrow. He'll be up there talking about a bill. You'll see the speaker kind of, do points of order. Other people come in. They'll eventually go for a vote. That's what you're going to picture. And tomorrow, I'll then disillusion you and show you that it's something kind of completely opposite.